Is your conscience bothering you? Is there an inner voice, a persistent whisper that confronts us with our choices, our slip-ups, the truths we'd rather ignore? In a world that often pushes us towards impulsive action and constant noise, we are rarely invited to pause and truly face this voice. Psalm 4, in its 4th verse, erupts with an exhortation that is an urgent call to introspection and righteousness. Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent. Selah. This passage, emerging in the context of David facing opposition and seeking justice, as in previous verses, is not gentle advice. It's a direct command, almost a shock, intended to awaken the soul. The psalmist addresses not only his enemies, but you, those who hear him, and, by extension, each one of us. He demands an abrupt halt to haste and passions for an honest confrontation with one's own conduct, in order to avoid error and find true peace. It is an incisive invitation to self-reflection and inner discipline, taking us out of our comfort zone and propelling us toward a deeper truth. The jolting warning, be angry and do not sin. The expression be angry here doesn't mean to feel fear in the sense of terror, but rather a reverent awe, a reverence so profound that it leads us to seriously consider the consequences of our actions. It is a warning about the gravity of sin and its ramifications. It suggests that recognizing divine sovereignty and human fragility should lead us to a posture of caution and moral responsibility. It's a jolt that pulls us out of complacency and reminds us of the importance of every choice. And the imperative "and do not sin" is a clear command to turn away from error, to resist temptation, to align conduct with divine will. It's not a suggestion, but a moral requirement. Think of Mr. Roberto's story. He had spent most of his life building a reputation as a shrewd businessman, and at times that shrewdness bordered on dishonesty. Small frauds, convenient omissions, and subtle manipulations were part of his routine to ensure greater profits. He justified himself by saying that everyone does it, and that one had to be smart to survive in the market. However, in his early 60s, a series of events began to shake his sense of security. A scandal in his industry, the arrest of an acquaintance for similar practices, and a growing uneasiness in his own conscience. On sleepless nights, the voice of "be angry and do not sin" echoed within him. It wasn't an audible voice, but the feeling that he was on a dangerous path, not just legally but spiritually. That trembling was his conscience screaming, an internal alarm about impending downfall. He began to feel a deep disgust for his own actions. What was once shrewdness now seemed like sin. He realized that his soul was at risk and that the incessant pursuit of profit was corrupting him. This trembling is the acute perception that there are ethical and moral limits, and that crossing them brings serious consequences for the soul and for life. It is the recognition that our actions have weight and reverberate beyond what we can see. The inner tribunal. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds. After the warning not to sin, the psalmist invites us to an act of deep introspection and self-examination. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds. The bed here symbolizes a place of rest, of intimacy, where masks fall and we confront our own truth. It is the moment when the world falls silent, and we are left only with the company of our thoughts and our heart. To ponder in this context is not just to think, but to reflect deeply, weigh, analyze with honesty and sincerity our motivations, our actions, and our choices. It is an invitation to bring our conscience to the tribunal of our own heart, under God's watchful eye. Think of Donna Margarita's story. She was an active woman in her community and church, always the first to offer help and organize events. However, behind her facade of service, there was a growing bitterness and a critical spirit towards others, especially those who didn't do things her way. She would find herself mentally criticizing, and sometimes in more intimate conversations, others' efforts, feeling that only she truly dedicated herself. In her late 50s, this attitude was corroding her internally, although externally she maintained an image of benevolence. In her nights, when she lay down, the racing thoughts and criticisms about others came to the forefront. She tried to justify herself, but the psalm's invitation to ponder in her heart on her bed began to resonate. Donna Margarita started to allow herself a more honest self-examination. Instead of suppressing negative thoughts, she observed them. She questioned herself. Why this irritation? Is it envy? Pride? Am I seeking recognition more than serving? This meditation in the quietness of her bed led her to confront the root of her bitterness. She realized that her generosity was at times stained by a desire for control and to be irreplaceable. This intimate pondering is the door to self-knowledge and transformation, allowing the light of divine truth to illuminate the darkest corners of our soul. It is a chance to reconcile with ourselves and our imperfections from the perspective of a God who sees all and forgives all. The silence that transforms. And be silent. The last part of the exhortation, and be silent, is the climax of this journey of introspection. It is not just to shut our mouths in the literal sense, but to silence the inner noise. The noise of justifications, excuses, anxieties, distractions. It is a call to the silence of the soul, to the quietness that allows the voice of conscience and the voice of God to be heard. In an era of constant stimuli, shouting opinions, and an almost addictive need to fill every moment with sound or information, being silent is a revolutionary act of spiritual discipline. It is the discipline that allows meditation to bear fruit, for truth to settle, and for the decision not to sin to be strengthened. Think of Mr. João's story. After a lifetime of intense work and much success, he retired. He was always a man of many words, accustomed to leading conversations and having the last word in discussions. With retirement, he found himself with time, but his mind was still agitated, and the need to do and speak continued. He filled his days with news, television debates, and many conversations, avoiding quietness. However, he felt a growing discomfort, a restlessness. It was then that a friend, noticing his agitation, suggested he experience moments of silence. Initially resistant, Mr. João, out of curiosity, tried. He would sit in his armchair, turn everything off, and try to just be silent. It was difficult. His mind screamed with memories, worries, plans, but he persisted. Gradually, in this intentional silence, he began to hear a different voice, the voice of his own soul, the voice of peace. He began to notice the beauty of simple sounds, birds singing, wind in the trees, and more importantly, the wisdom that emerged from within him without the need to seek external opinions. This silence brought him a clarity he hadn't experienced in years, allowing his meditations on life to deepen and leading him to a new level of contentment. Silence is the fertile ground where the seed of reflection grows and where the decision for a more integrated life is strengthened. The urgency of self-discipline and inner truth. Psalm 4:4, therefore, is not just advice. It is an urgent call to spiritual self-discipline in a world that pushes us towards superficiality and impulsivity. It challenges us to confront our own weaknesses, have the courage to feel the trembling of conscience when faced with the possibility of error, cultivate introspection, conduct an honest heart examination, especially in moments of quiet, embrace silence, discipline the mind and soul to quiet the noise and hear the voice of truth. This is a powerful message for the soul that seeks to live with authenticity and purpose. It reminds us that true peace is not found in fleeing from our flaws, but in the courageous act of confronting them in a space of silent reflection, allowing divine grace to guide us towards a path of righteousness. Selah, the pause for soul discipline. And once again, the word Selah appears as an imperative for meditation. After such a direct and challenging exhortation, Selah compels us to pause, to absorb the depth of these instructions, and to allow them to resonate within us. It is an invitation not just to read these words, but to practice them. Are you willing to tremble before the possibility of error, to acknowledge your inclinations to sin? Have you set aside time to ponder in your own heart on your bed, examining your deepest motivations? Are you able to be silent, to silence external and internal noise, to hear the voice of your conscience and divine guidance? Selah encourages us to make this spiritual discipline an integral part of our lives. It's a call to take a deep breath, to embrace silence and introspection as paths to true peace and a life aligned with God's will. May this pause be a constant invitation to inner transformation, leading you on a path of integrity and serenity.